I was told that my life changed before I could even speak a full sentence. My name is Kareem Yusuf, and I was born on April 12, 2013, in the small town of Garima district, along the old desert road near northern Kafra. My parents were Muslims, kind and gentle people, but when I was almost 2 years old, they made a secret decision to follow Jesus. They never planned to abandon their culture or disrespect anyone. They simply wanted to walk in the light they had discovered. But a violent group in the region, known for targeting anyone who changed their belief, found out. One night in 2015, they attacked our small home. I survived only because a Christian woman named Miriam Odafe, who lived a few houses away, took me into her arms and fled before the attackers returned. Miriam carried me through the night with nothing but a shawl around my tiny body. She later told me that she kept praying silently for strength and courage. We hid in an abandoned storehouse near the border of Duma village until sunrise. By morning, she found a local truck driver who agreed to take us south toward a safer community. She never once told me that I was a burden. Instead, she treated me like the son she never had. Although I didn't understand anything at the time, she believed that God had a plan for me. Years later, she said she always felt a quiet stirring in her heart that I would be used in ways she could not imagine. We finally settled in a wooden house on the outskirts of Bima Street, in the town of Nwaji, far from where everything began. Miriam registered me in a small school and raised me with patience, prayer, and wisdom. She never spoke badly about the people who hurt my parents. She simply taught me to walk in peace, forgive, and trust that God sees everything. As I grew older, I started to feel something unusual inside me whenever I prayed. It was as if God kept whispering strength into my heart, shaping me for a purpose I didn't yet understand. But I also knew that my story was not mine alone. It came from loss, rescue, and love that chose to keep going even when everything seemed broken. As I grew older in Nwaji town, the truth about my past slowly unfolded. I was about 9 years old when Miriam finally sat me down one quiet evening, on July 6, 2022, and explained everything. She told me where I was born, why we ran, and how my parents had accepted Jesus before losing their lives. I listened with a heavy heart. Even though I never knew them, I felt a deep sadness for the life I never had with them. Yet, at the same time, I felt something warm inside me, like a gentle reminder that I was not alone. I understood that my life had been spared for a reason, but I didn't know what that reason was. After that night, I began to pray more seriously. Sometimes, while praying, I would sense a quiet presence. It didn't frighten me. Instead, it strengthened me. There were moments when I felt as if God was letting me know that He would lead me step by step. My school life continued as normal, but inside my heart, something was growing. I wasn't trying to be special or different. I simply wanted to live in peace. Yet, there were days when I felt a soft stirring, like someone preparing me for a journey I didn't yet understand. I kept these feelings to myself because I didn't want Miriam to worry. Meanwhile, Miriam continued to teach me about forgiveness and kindness. She often reminded me that pain should not turn into hatred. She always said that my parents' choice was made out of love, not rebellion, and that I should live the same way. Sometimes, I would watch her talk to neighbors with gentleness, even when they disagreed with her. Her life became my first example of what it meant to follow Jesus quietly, without causing trouble or disrespect. As the months passed, the sense of purpose inside me grew stronger. I didn't know how or when things would unfold, but I trusted that God was shaping my path even if the world around me didn't notice. I was 10 years old when something unusual happened for the first time. It was on February 14, 2023, during a small prayer gathering in our neighborhood on Bima Street. Miriam had taken me along because she didn't like leaving me at home alone. The gathering was simple, just a few people sitting in a circle, praying quietly. I sat beside her, listening. Then, in the middle of the prayer, I felt a strong warmth in my chest. It wasn't painful, but I couldn't ignore it. Something inside me urged me to stand up, even though I didn't understand why. I wasn't a preacher, and I didn't know any special verses. But I stood anyway. When I opened my mouth, words came out that I didn't plan. I spoke slowly, telling them that God was with them and strengthening them. I didn't shout, I didn't try to impress anyone. I just spoke gently. After I sat down, a woman named Esther, who lived 2 streets away, began to cry softly. She later said that she had been feeling hopeless for weeks and that something inside her lifted when she heard those words. I felt surprised. I didn't even remember everything I said. All I knew was that the warm feeling had guided me. On our way home, Miriam walked quietly beside me. She didn't question me or scold me. Instead, she simply told me that sometimes God works through young people when they least expect it. After that day, more small moments happened from time to time. Once, I prayed for a boy who had been sick for days, and by the next morning, his fever had disappeared. Another time, a woman said she found peace after months of fear just by hearing me pray. I didn't understand how or why any of it was happening, but the same quiet presence inside me would guide me whenever I prayed for someone. I didn't see visions every day, but there were times when I felt God letting me know that He was near. With each passing month, I grew more aware that something bigger than me was unfolding. Yet I still felt like the same simple boy who just wanted to live in peace. I didn't know that greater challenges and greater purpose were still ahead of me. In August 2023, something unexpected happened. A family from Duma village, which was close to the region where my parents and I once lived, sent a message through a friend asking if I could come and pray for their daughter. They didn't know my background, but they had heard stories of young people finding strength through prayer when I prayed for them. Duma village was mostly an Islamic community, and Miriam was very cautious. She didn't want trouble for anyone. But she prayed about it for several days, and afterward she said she felt a gentle peace in her heart that we should go. I was nervous, but I agreed because I sensed God guiding me quietly from within. We traveled early in the morning on August 19, 2023. When we arrived, the family welcomed us respectfully. Their daughter, Lena, had been unable to walk properly for months. I didn't promise anything special. I simply asked if I could pray softly beside her. As soon as I placed my hand near her shoulder, I felt the familiar warmth rise inside me. It was calm, steady, and comforting. I whispered a simple prayer. While I prayed, I felt God letting me know that He was bringing strength into her legs. After a few minutes, Lena slowly stood up. At first, she leaned on the wall, then she took a few steps. Her mother covered her face with her hands, crying quietly, and her father kept repeating that something beyond understanding had happened. More people from the area heard about it, not through noise but through simple word of mouth. In the following weeks, a few families invited us again, not for arguments about belief, but because they were desperate for hope. I prayed for them the same humble way, without shouting or forcing anything. Some felt peace, some felt strength, and some said their pain reduced. I never tried to convince anyone to change what they believed. I only prayed and allowed God to work in His own way. Yet, slowly, some people began to ask questions about why a boy like me would travel just to pray. I always answered gently, saying that God's love reaches everywhere. That season was the beginning of something much bigger than I understood at the time. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button and become part of this incredible faith-building community. This is more than just a platform. It's a family of believers who share their testimonies, support one another through trials, and celebrate victories together. When you subscribe, you're joining a space where faith is strengthened, hope is renewed, and prayers are answered. Let's continue to build each other up and witness God's faithfulness together in this journey of faith. On January 2024, something happened that I will never forget. We received an invitation from a group of women in Garima district, the same region where I was born. They had heard about the quiet prayers and unexpected healings that took place in Duma village. These women were from different families, and most of them were devoted Muslims. They didn't invite me for debate or argument. They simply wanted encouragement because many of them were dealing with fear, sickness, and family struggles. Miriam prayed for several days before agreeing that we should go. Even though it was a place filled with memories she kept hidden from me as a child, she felt God giving her courage. When we arrived on January 14th, the crowd surprised us. The gathering took place in an open courtyard behind an old community center. Most of the women wore colorful hijabs, blue, white, purple, yellow, red, and stood together. I felt my heart racing. I didn't know what to say or how to begin. I was only a boy, not a preacher or leader. But as I stepped forward, the same gentle warmth I had felt many times before began to rise in my chest. It wasn't loud or forceful. It was calm and steady. It guided me to speak honestly about hope, peace, and the comfort God gives to anyone who calls on Him. I didn't speak with big words. I simply spoke from my heart. As I spoke, I noticed some of the women wiping tears from their eyes. Others raised their hands softly, not in excitement, but in quiet surrender. I didn't ask them to do anything. I kept my focus on speaking encouragement. When we prayed, several women said they felt something lift off their hearts. One said her constant nightmares stopped immediately. Another said she felt strength return to her weak body. I didn't fully understand how God was working, but the presence around us felt peaceful and gentle. When the gathering ended, many women thanked us warmly. Some asked how they could know Jesus personally, but I didn't pressure anyone. I only explained gently, letting God speak to their hearts in His own way. That day marked a turning point, because news of the gathering spread farther than we expected. As the weeks passed after the gathering in Garima district, more people began sending quiet messages asking if I could come pray for their families. Some were Muslims, some were Christians, and some didn't follow any belief at all. They came because they heard that peace and healing followed wherever I prayed. But not everyone was happy about it. On February 3, 2024, Miriam received a warning from a friend who lived near the border of Kafra. He said a group of men were asking questions about a young boy who prayed in the name of Jesus. They didn't say my name, but the description was close. When Miriam heard this, her face became serious, and she kept praying silently for wisdom. That night, she sat beside me and explained that following God sometimes brings challenges. She told me we might need to stay indoors for a while. I nodded, but in my heart I felt a quiet peace that I didn't fully understand. While I prayed before sleeping, I felt a gentle presence, the same one I had known since childhood. It was calm, not frightening. In that moment, I sensed that God was letting me know that fear would not stop His plan. He also helped me understand that protection does not always mean running away. Sometimes it means trusting Him while being wise. I didn't hear loud instructions or see bright visions. It was just a steady assurance in my heart. During the days that followed, we stayed close to home. Miriam taught me more about listening to God's guidance and being careful without losing courage. Even though we avoided traveling, people still came quietly to our small house on Bima Street. Some came late in the evening to avoid attention. A few felt peace immediately when we prayed, while others simply felt supported by the kindness they received. Those days taught me that serving God wasn't always about crowds or journeys. Sometimes it was about patience, waiting, and trusting that God was still working even when things looked silent. Little did we know that another door would open soon, drawing us into an even larger purpose. In early April 2024, something surprising happened. A respected elder from a small community near the old Al-Majid market in northern Kafra sent a quiet request asking if Miriam and I could visit. His name was Abdul Karim Musa, a calm older man known for fairness and kindness. He had heard stories from Garima district and Duma village, but what made his request unusual was that his own grandson, Samir, had been struggling with a condition that drained his strength daily. Doctors had tried their best, but the boy's health continued to decline. The elder didn't ask us to preach or convince anyone. He simply said he wanted us to pray for peace for his grandson. Miriam prayed for several days before agreeing. She felt a settled peace in her heart, the same peace she felt before our previous journeys. On April 10, 2024, we traveled early in the morning. When we arrived, the atmosphere was calm but heavy with worry. The family welcomed us respectfully. They guided us into a small room where Samir lay on a mat with his eyes half open. I knelt beside him quietly. I didn't know what to say, so I whispered a simple prayer. As soon as I began, the familiar warmth filled my chest again. It rose slowly, not rushing, and I felt God letting me know that strength was being restored to the boy. Within minutes, Samir opened his eyes fully and tried to sit up. His mother gasped softly, covering her mouth with both hands. His father held his shoulder gently to support him. The room became still, almost like the air itself paused. After a few moments, Samir managed to stand, weak but steady. His grandfather bowed his head with deep emotion. No one shouted. No one argued. It was a quiet moment of relief and gratitude. Before leaving, the elder walked us outside and thanked us with sincerity. He didn't ask for explanations or debates. He simply said he had seen mercy that he didn't expect. As we walked back toward the main road, I felt the weight of what had just happened. It wasn't about fame or numbers. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about compassion reaching people who needed it. Miriam held my hand gently, and I knew she felt the same peace. That day reminded me that God can open doors in places we never imagine. All we must do is walk with humility and listen when He guides us. Little did we know that this visit would spread hope even farther, leading to new challenges and new blessings. After the visit to the elder near Al-Majid Market, the news spread quietly but steadily. Families began sending messages through trusted friends, asking if we could come pray for their loved ones. Many of them lived in communities where gatherings were watched closely, so they avoided bringing attention to themselves. What surprised us most was that many who reached out were not Christians. They were Muslims who simply wanted comfort, healing, or strength. Miriam always reminded me to approach every invitation with humility and careful prayer. She believed that God could lead us into places only when the time was right. By late May 2024, we began receiving more invitations than we could respond to. On June 2, 2024, we traveled to a village near the Rasha River. People had gathered in a wide open field behind a row of small houses. When I stepped forward, I felt a familiar calmness inside my chest. I didn't speak loudly, I just shared simple words from my heart. Some women raised their hands softly as they listened. Others sobbed gently, releasing worries they had carried for years. During prayer, I felt a deep stillness settle over the crowd. Afterward, several people said that the heaviness they felt in their hearts had lifted. One man said the pain in his back had reduced sharply. Another woman walked more steadily than she had in weeks. These moments reminded me again that God's work is gentle, steady, and never forced. Crowds continued to grow through June and July. But Miriam always made sure we stayed wise, moving only when necessary and avoiding places that could lead to trouble. Even though many people showed kindness, there were still some who questioned why a boy like me prayed in this way. Whenever I felt nervous or overwhelmed, I prayed quietly, and God would let me know that He was guiding each step. I didn't feel powerful or special. I simply felt responsible. The more people gathered, the more I understood that God was using these moments to reach hearts, heal wounds, and bring hope to those who felt forgotten. And with each gathering, I learned more about patience, compassion, and quiet courage. In August 2024, something happened that felt like a full circle moment. A quiet invitation came from Garima district again, but this time it came from a small faith group made up of both Muslims and Christians who gathered secretly for prayer. They had heard what happened in other villages and wanted encouragement. When Miriam read the message, she paused for a long time. Garima district was the place where my parents' story ended and where mine had begun. Even though I had visited nearby areas before, this was the first time a group inside the district directly asked for us. Miriam prayed for days, asking God for clarity. Eventually, she felt a calm reassurance that it was time to go. We traveled on August 23, 2024, and arrived before sunset. The meeting took place inside a quiet courtyard surrounded by old clay walls. People entered in small numbers to avoid drawing attention. When I stepped into the courtyard, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. I didn't remember the town from my early childhood, yet something in the air felt familiar, like a silent echo from the past. Miriam stood close to me, gently squeezing my hand. When the people settled, I stepped forward and began to speak. As always, I didn't use big words. I spoke simply about hope, peace, and the strength God gives in difficult seasons. I felt the familiar calmness rise in my chest, guiding each word. During prayer, several people knelt quietly. A woman felt relief from chest tightness she had lived with for months. A young man said the fear that tormented him every night suddenly eased. Another person said they felt a warmth spreading through their body, melting the heaviness inside them. I didn't announce anything. I simply continued praying softly. As I prayed, I sensed God letting me know that returning here was part of His healing. For me, for the memories tied to this place, and for the people who had long carried pain they never spoke about. When we finished, many people thanked us with quiet voices. As we walked back toward the old road that led out of Garima district, the wind blew softly across the sand. I didn't feel fear or sadness. Instead, I felt a peaceful closure, as though a chapter had gently settled into its right place. Since returning from Garima district, I have learned that following God is not about being seen or heard by many. It is about living with love, patience, and faithfulness every single day. I am still a boy, only 11 years old now, but I have felt the gentle guidance of God in ways I could never imagine as a child. Every time I pray, every time I speak words of encouragement, and every time I walk quietly among people, I feel His presence beside me. He reveals to me that every act of kindness, every prayer whispered in secret, matters more than I can ever count. This has taught me to trust Him with my life completely, even when the path seems uncertain or frightening. I want to remind anyone reading this that God does not need a famous voice, a strong body, or great wealth to work through a person. What matters is a willing heart, a humble spirit, and a willingness to love others. I have learned that true faith is shown in small acts, praying for someone quietly, forgiving those who hurt you, and speaking hope where fear and sadness live. Even in places where people may not understand, God can use the smallest and youngest among us to bring comfort, healing, and courage. I have experienced it and I know it is real. Every day I wake up with a heart that wants to pray, to encourage, and to love, just as Miriam taught me, and just as my parents once lived before they were taken from me. I want to invite you to share your prayer requests in the comments below. Whatever you're facing today, whether it's a personal challenge, a family situation, a health concern, or simply a desire for spiritual growth, our intercessory team is here to stand with you in prayer. We believe in the power of collective prayer, and we don't want you to carry your burdens alone. Take a moment to write out your request, and know that it will be lifted up with faith and compassion by our prayer warriors who are committed to interceding on your behalf. To anyone following God's path, I encourage you to walk with Him wholeheartedly. Love one another sincerely, pray without ceasing, and study God's Word patiently. Trust Him even when life feels hard or confusing. There will be times of fear, loss, or uncertainty, but God is faithful and gentle. He will guide you step by step, reveal His will in quiet ways, and use you to bring hope to others, even in places and moments you never expect. I have seen it with my own eyes, and I live each day grateful that He has chosen to use me in His plan. Stay faithful, be humble, and remember that God's love is greater than any fear.